Thai PM Prayut refuses to resign, pro-democracy masses demonstrate again. Thailand's pro-democracy movement promised to return to the streets on Sunday, 25/10/2020, after the deadline they gave Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha to resign, Saturday at 22:00 local time, was rejected. Activists considered the Prime Minister position that Prayut won in last year's election was invalid because of many flaws. Last Wednesday the mob gave the former military leader time to step down within 3 days. Jachipapai activist Bunpatera Raksa said protesters would fill a major Bangkok intersection on Sunday afternoon, no matter what. Thai PM Prayut refuses to resign, pro-democracy masses demonstrate again. We have heard the answer from the Prime Minister regarding these demands. We will protest Prayut in her chapersong at 16:00, said Pai, quoted by AFP. Prayut remains firm in his office. On Saturday he attended a prayer at Bangkok's historic Buddhist temple, saying all problems can be resolved through compromise. The pro-democracy demonstrations that have been going on for months in Thailand have received support from the innkeepers. They give demonstrators access to rusted inns, sometimes for free. Since mid-July, protests led by Thai youth and students organized online have called for Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha to resign and demand reforms of the monarchical system of government. In order to reduce the growing number of demonstrators, the government deployed riot troops equipped with water cannons and tear gas shots. The repressive actions of the authorities often force the demonstrators to run for hiding places. Not a few of the protesters are found sleeping due to fatigue in narrow spaces, and even on the side of the road. It was such a sight that prompted an innkeeper to provide a temporary respite for the demonstrators. I feel sorry for those who have no place to live, said a medical student, who declined to be identified for fear of being targeted by authorities.
The Thai Prime Minister announced on Wednesday that he might repeal an emergency decree banning gatherings of more than 4 people. The announcement came after a day of anti-government action across the country. Thousands of angry democracy activists marched at Government House against an emergency decree imposed last week to contain a growing protest movement demanding the resignation of the Prime Minister and reform of the monarchy. However, these attempts at prohibition failed in practice. As the masses became increasingly chaotic voicing their mission, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha spoke to the nation, saying he would make the first step to defuse the situation. I am currently preparing to lift a severe state of emergency in Bangkok, and will do so immediately if there are no violent incidents, he said, without specifying any time frame, as quoted by AFP on Wednesday, 21/10/2020. Channel News Asia reported, a group of royalists gathered at Ramkhamhaeng University to show support for King Maha Vajiralongkorn. But tensions escalated when student protesters gathered nearby. The pro-royal mob dressed in yellow confronted the students. They chided each other, which continued to throw bottles and other objects. The students finally withdrew, and the police came to intervene. "We won today," shouted royalists, quoted from Channel News Asia. The Thai demonstration has been going on almost without chaos so far, except for the incident last week, when riot police fired water cannons at demonstrators. Police spokesman Yunjos Thapjumnong said all groups would treat it the same. "We are prepared for big surprises every day. We need to balance law enforcement with social peace and security, no matter who gets together." This big demonstration rocked the Thai government, despite the lèse-majesté law that can put a royal insult to 15 years in prison. When the demonstration started in July, demonstrators initially demanded a new law and the resignation of PM Prayut. They accused him of maintaining power by fabricating elections. The royal palace has a policy of not commenting to the media and not commenting on protests or protesters' demands. Several thousand demonstrators, mostly students and youth, said they would head to Prayut's office in the government building of the Victory Monument. "The government should resign. My future will be catastrophic," said a 16-year-old student who gave his name as put. "I'm only a student, but I have the right to have my voice heard too." Thai ultimatum. PM Prayut Chan-o-cha to resign in 3 days. Thai protesters gave Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha a 3-day ultimatum to step down and fulfill their main demand, namely monarchical reform. Thousands of protesters on Wednesday, 21/10/2020, night broke through police barricades and barbed wire for a demonstration in front of Prayut's official office. They gathered near the building, known as the government building, shortly after the Prime Minister said his government was ready to lift emergency rules banning large gatherings in the capital if protests remain peaceful. "We submitted Prayut's resignation letter, which is one of our 3 demands for youth," one of the main protest organizations said in a Facebook post late Wednesday. "If the government doesn't give an answer within 3 days, the people will come back with higher demands than before," he continued as quoted by the Straits Times on Thursday, 22/10/2020. Prayut has struggled to stem the heightened street demonstrations, which have used Hong Kong-style pop-up demonstrations to evade police and oppose an emergency ruling issued last week. The government is showing no signs of fulfilling the protesters' ultimatum, which would overthrow the royalist elite that has maintained power for much of Thailand's history. However, it appears the Thai government is also trying to avoid the bloodshed that could destabilize the economy further. "I will take the first steps to defuse this situation," Prayut said in a speech to the country on Wednesday. "I am currently preparing to lift the severe state of emergency in Bangkok and will do so immediately if there are no violent incidents," he said. Next page. The Thai Prime Minister announced on Wednesday that he might repeal an emergency decree banning gatherings of more than 4 people. The announcement came after a day of anti-government action across the country. Thousands of angry democracy activists marched at Government House against an emergency decree imposed last week to contain a growing protest movement demanding the resignation of the Prime Minister and reform of the monarchy. However, these attempts at prohibition failed in practice. As the masses became increasingly chaotic voicing their mission, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha spoke to the nation, saying he would make the first step to defuse the situation. "I am currently preparing to lift a severe state of emergency in Bangkok and will do so immediately if there are no violent incidents," he said, without specifying any time frame, as quoted by AFP on Wednesday, 21/10/2020.